Hi, I'm Thamp Mathew. I'm with Sister Kesiya Kuriakose here in Houston, Texas. She has taken a month-long mission trip to one of the poorest cities, and I'm just talking with her about her experience. Kesiya, could you explain to me why did you take this trip and what is your experience while you were there more than a month in that slums and also the poorest of the poorest in the world? Can you tell us how and why and your experience, please?
I heard about the trip through one of my campus workers, and she told me about this trip to serve the poor and how the poor they are at the center of the gospel. Jesus talks about the poor more than anything else. He talks about serving them and living among them and not trying to westernize them, but to live with them, to care for them and to care about the things that they care about. One of the things that I learned the most was the conditions of a slum. They're really hard to live in, but the hardest thing about living in the slum is the isolation that you feel towards the rest of the world and the rest of society. No one talks to the people in the slum other than the other slum dwellers. There are no people who just come by to see how they're doing. Everyone has work to do and everyone has things to get done. There's not a lot of fun or joy or hope sometimes. Sometimes it's a sense of hopelessness that you feel in the slum.
So, living and born and brought up here in the United States of America, you have never seen a slum area like what you were.
No.
And you lived with them, and you told me that you had just $1 a day for your sustenance.
Yeah. So the idea was that we would live like they did. So if they didn't get to have meat every single day for dinner and lunch, then we weren't going to have it. That we were going to learn and identify with the poor the way that Jesus identified with the poor when he was living 2,000 years ago. It's definitely hard, and it definitely makes you feel uncomfortable.
How did you feel the first day or the first week when you were in the midst of this poverty and all this hardship they were going through?
The first week I was counting down the days till I got to go home because
So you were missing your telephone, you were missing your chatting, talking?
I was missing beds that were comfortable and a fan and AC. I was missing refrigerators and showers that were warm. I was missing all of the little things that I never thought.
So you told me that you had only 3 pairs of clothes with you.
Yes.
And so how did you feel about that?
I think it's so funny. It made getting dressed in the morning so easy. There was no question of what to wear. I only had 1 pair that was dry, and so you put it on. You don't even think about it. It's just... there's freedom in not having so many things attached to you. There's more that you can do the less that you have. There's less attachment and there's more freedom.
Did you stay with one among them?
So we lived in an apartment, we lived in an apartment that was just that our team was staying in, but the apartment was in this in a slum dwelling area.
I have seen the picture of that the building where you stayed, and I know the condition by looking at that building. How did you feel when you were in that building?
Honestly, I was so grateful that we had a building and a door that locked, and we had a kitchen, and we had space.
You never felt the safety of the building, or?
I mean, there were definitely times when the trains would come. We lived right underneath the train station, so when both of the trains were crossing at the same time and they both blew their horns, I thought the building was gonna shake. I felt the building shaking.
The building was shaking, and you were kind of little bit of feelings in your heart, huh?
Yeah, there was a little anxiety, a lot of anxiety, lots of times.
All right. So your day started early morning, or
yes.
What time?
So we had to be, breakfast started at 8 o'clock. So
you told me that you had to cook your own food.
Yes.
All
so
right.
there was there is a breakfast team. So if you're on the breakfast team, then you have to wake up earlier to boil the eggs and make the chai and get the bread ready and cut the mango.
So you had the luxury of having some eggs there, right?
We did. So we had to buy our own eggs. And
So do you mean all these had to be done within that $1?
So we individually didn't try to live for more than $1. So meaning we would try to limit. So taking the metro might have been easier.
What do you mean taking the metro? You were riding on the trains?
I was. So I had to work. I volunteered at the red light district of Calcutta called Sonagachi. And Sonagachi was pretty far from where we were living, so we had to commute every day.
Every day you were commuting?
Yes.
So did you get into the ladies' compartment or?
Yes, we made the mistake of getting into the men's compartment one time and realized...
What happened then?
People were touching us and grabbing us, staring at us, looking at us, and it was just extremely terrifying. And
so they were thinking you are aliens, or? Yeah,
they would just touch us whenever they wanted, and they would all whisper about us, and everyone was so close. There was no personal body space, which was completely new for me.
That's right. Okay, so how did you feel about the train ride when you were doing it by yourself?
The first couple of days, I remember just holding on to my friend's hand and saying, okay, we got to get on the train and we got to get off the train, and somehow we have to stay on this train without falling off. And it was terrifying.
I heard that you fell down one time.
I did. It was the last day, and one of the ladies I was trying to get on the train, and it was raining, and so when it rains, the trains don't run very accurately, and so the train hadn't come for almost 40 minutes, and we were waiting. And I accidentally got pushed in the middle, and one of the ladies who was getting off the train came and pushed me, and I fell backwards into a pile of mud and poop and all sorts of nastiness. And some man picked me up, and I started running after the train to make it with the rest of my team.
So you still got into the train?
Yes, I made it in, barely. The train was moving.
I can't believe that you did that.
Yeah, I mean, I had to, or else I would be stuck. So
it is very dangerous, but I know what does it mean. Okay. All right. Tell me, what did you do while you were there?
We actually didn't do a lot. The whole purpose of this trip was to live among the poor and to identify with them. So we didn't come there offering
So how
them.
did the people took it? You were welcomed, or?
We were so welcomed. I saw the people who had absolutely nothing to give us absolutely everything that they had. The women that I worked with are poor. They are poor women who have families to support. But if they saw me without a cracker in my hand, or if they saw me without rice on my little plate, they would give me their own rice or give me their own crackers.
So even though they did not have much, they were willing to sacrifice.
They sacrificed everything for us consistently. Always.
Can you imagine our society here in America if they do the things like that?
Yeah, and it's crazy because 98% of the women that I worked with are Hindu or Muslim. They're not Christian, and they welcomed us simply because that was part of the culture.
So tell me, what was your feeling about this whole experience in comparison to what Jesus has done on the cross of Calvary?
I think it makes me think about how we as a Western culture view the gospel. I think we'd like to think that the gospel and serving the poor are just completely different. But that's not, I think I've just realized over the past month and a half while I was there that the gospel of Jesus is about serving the poor.
So while you were there, did you ever talk to them, or you just lived there among them?
I didn't know Bangla, and they didn't know English.
Have you learned any Bangla?
I have.
Kamanachin.
Baloachi.
Oh, very good. You know something. All
something.
Right.
The phrase that I would use often is Ami Bangla Shikte Chai. And all of the women would just laugh at me as I said that, and they would teach me one word, and I would teach them a word in English.
Very nice. Okay, so what is your recommendation? Here in America, many times people take mission trips. They go for 10 days, spent a lot of money for tickets and come
Yeah.
back in 10 days time. What do you think? What is your recommendation to these mission trips?
I don't think that I think one of the hardest lessons that I learned this summer is this mission trip helped me more than it helped the women that I worked with. That they were the ones who had to welcome me into their homes and welcomed me into their lives, and I left 6 weeks later, and chances are I will never communicate with them again.
So you mentioned to me that the condition was deplorable, and the condition, especially when the rain comes, it is so terrible.
It's sad. After a while, it's not. The condition isn't just these are the people in the slum and it affects them. It becomes this condition is affecting me. I used to love the rain, and I used to love the rain, and I know that like my family in South India loves the rain because it talks about it's about like land being replenished. But in Calcutta, the rain represented monsoons and storms that would just come and wash away people's homes and livelihoods, and everything that they had would be gone.
Also, when it is flooded, the whole streets are with so much of dirt, so much of odor comes out.
Oh yeah, you just have
How did you feel that experience?
Part of me was so disgusted and repulsed, and then my teammate Esther reminded me it's not fair for me to be so disgusted and repulsed and so angry at these conditions, because Jesus left the comforts of heaven to live in first century Jerusalem, and I left the comforts of America, and I'm complaining, and I have no right to complain because I get to leave, and the men and women and children who live in these conditions, that's their home. That is where, that's their home.
So ultimately, when you were leaving that place after 45 days, what was the response of the people there?
They were sad, and I was sad. We were all crying. It's sad because the women, even though I didn't know how to communicate with them very effectively, they've showed me more love than a lot of people that I consider very close to me.
Do you mean that they wanted you to come back?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the second that you start interacting with them, and the second that you start identifying with them, and the second you stop being a Westerner and get down on your knees and play with their kids and you help them finish washing their dishes, they start to love you and they start to give you everything that they have.
So how many people were there in the group? You were all together?
There is 12 of us.
12 also?
Yes.
And anybody got sick?
One of our friends got really sick, and he ended up getting pancreatitis, and he ended up leaving to come back home.
All right.
And one of my other friends got really sick with, I think we think it was a waterborne illness, and she couldn't breathe. Parts of her body were getting paralyzed, and we had we were freaking out.
You all were scared?
We were terrified because she is burning hot, and she's shivering, and she's turning red, and 20 minutes later she's turning pale, and there are no ambulances to call. There isn't a 911 number. We're depending on the people who live underneath us or below our apartment to come to our rescue.
If you get an opportunity again, would you go?
Absolutely, that's the plan. I think there's beauty in serving. I think there's beauty in stopping, and there's beauty in realizing that the Western culture isn't everything, right? Material possessions can get you so far, but there is this sense of community, and there's this sense of love that the people in the slums have towards each other that you don't see in 21st century America.
Kesiya, I thank you for what you have done together with your friends. And this is indeed a challenge that you have taken into your heart. And I appreciate you, and God bless you. God fulfill the desires of your heart in the coming days. From childhood onwards, I have seen that you had a passion to reach out to the people. I remember one time when you got your birthday gift that you sent all those gifts, the money to me, to send to the poor and the needy. Thank you. And I appreciate your time. Once again, thank you.
Okay.
And God bless you.
God bless you too.